Our next keynote speaker is Alishia Morales. Alishia is a member of the Socialist Alternative and an organizer with the National Workers' Strike Back movement that launched this March. She will share with us the successes and lessons of various campaigns in Seattle, including the election of the first socialist city official in 100 years. Alishia will discuss the Workers' Strike Back plans and goals for building a strong working class movement in Massachusetts. Alishia Morales, por favor.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today. My name is Alishia. I'm a member of Workers' Strike Back, as well as a member of an international organization called International Socialist Alternative. I'm also an education support professional at a local special education school here in Worcester. Like many people in this room, I believe in the power of workers to change society, and the stakes haven't been higher to organize people en masse against the policies of the uber-rich corporations and the growth of the far right. Workers' Strike Back is a new independent movement of working class people and youth fighting in our schools, workplaces, unions, and communities against the big bosses and our political servants. We are collectively fighting for winning workers a real raise, good union jobs for all, fighting racism, sexism, transphobia, xenophobia, and all other oppression, fighting for high-quality, affordable housing, and free healthcare for all. Lastly, we are tired of sellouts and the Democrats consistently betraying working class people. We need an independent alternative to the two-party system. We are excited to collaborate with other organizations and independent parties like the Green Rainbow Party today, and as well as in future campaigns and actions that strengthen the rank and file labor movement and other movements such as fighting for real climate justice against corporate-induced climate change. Now, I'm going to give more specific background and attest to the strength of independent campaign organizing and movement building on the streets, as has been exemplified time and time again in the Seattle City Council seat of Shama Sumwa. Shama is a socialist alternative member who ran on an independent slate back in 2013 and has been re-elected twice and even beat a right-wing recall against her seat just a year after. Shama Sawant will not be seeking re-election this year and is instead devoting her energy and tactics to building the larger national movement for labor and fighting back against the bosses. We don't believe that fighting on the electoral front is the end-all be-all way to fight back, but the Seattle working class has been able to win major gains in the last 9 years with a Marxist in office. Shama only takes the average wage of a worker in her district and donates the rest of her salary to social movements and union strike funds. We think this is a really strong way for candidates to show that they are really for the working people. But as a member of Socialist Alternative, I was able to volunteer for the 2019 re-election campaign and the 2021 Defeat the Recall campaign that both resulted in victory for Shama and the movement, including many valuable lessons for progressive candidates today. And I'll comment in depth on my experience a little later, but just first a little background on Shama. So she first won her seat with an independent grassroots campaign back in 2013 in conjunction with her and Socialist Alternative's role in the 15 Now coalition, which also had unions and grassroots organizations. She was the first elected socialist to Seattle office in 100 years and came before the massive national popularity of self-proclaimed socialists Bernie Sanders and AOC. The victory of $15 per hour minimum wage in 2014 marked one of the first significant offensive gains for the working class that was won by a powerful movement from below and not watered down by backroom negotiations. The 15 Now campaign was inspired by another movement that people have heard of, the Fight for 15, that was started by fast food workers in New York City demanding higher wages and respect and dignity in the workplace. Shama stated that the $50 demand marks a decisive challenge to capitalism, made possible by linking the power of elected office with the struggle of a real movement. Without both, this victory of $15 in Seattle would not have been possible. And almost a decade later, the demand for a living wage has doubled and is closer to $30 per hour as Amazon workers in the Northern Kentucky Air Hub, KCBG, are fighting for, along with union recognition and 180 hours of PTO. An important feature of all of these campaigns, 15 Now, Block the Bunker, the winning of strong renters' rights legislation, and the Amazon tax, is the ability to constantly develop new perspectives to somewhat predict how the ruling class and our enemies are going to attack us next, and always have an offensive strategy planned to expose their greed and undemocratic tactics. In every instance, Victoria's campaigns like 15 Now have been replicated in other parts of the country, and I've won in Minneapolis, LA, New York City, and other cities as well. The idea of winning strong gains for working class people in Seattle is to have that victory spread nationally, even if we don't have socialist electeds in every city yet. I also want to touch on how Shama and Socialist Alternative used the city council seat during uprisings and the Black Lives Matter movement to win material gains against racism and police brutality. When a new $160 million police precinct and training center was being proposed to be built in the middle of Seattle in 2016, there was mass opposition from the community who knew that money would have been better spent on building affordable housing. Homelessness had just been declared a state of emergency in Seattle, yet the city council, while Shama was on vacation of course, suspended the rules and pushed through a same-day emergency resolution to advance the police bunker to be built. So representatives can act urgently when it comes to funding for the police, but why don't we ever see that emergency passing of resolutions to build affordable housing? This was the difference of having a representative that is accountable to working class people and not corporate interests, instead of representatives who speak progressively, but cave under pressure to the establishment. The police bunker was successfully blocked due to hundreds of community members demonstrating their opposition in overpacked city council meetings. Shama Sawant's office was vocal in this opposition to funding resources for police and organized rallies to instead demand that money be proposed to build affordable homes in Seattle. During the George Floyd uprising in 2020, which became the biggest protest movement in American history, Shama's office introduced and passed a bill banning the use of crowd control weapons and chemical warfare by police in Seattle protests. Seattle has a long history of police brutality and rapid gentrification, where many unarmed Black, Indigenous people of color have died at the hands of police, and Black families are being priced out of their lifelong homes at an astonishing rate. Shama used her role as a city official with a key to allow a Black Lives Matter protest that was led by mothers and family members of police brutality victims into City Hall. During this highly politicized time, there were protests daily, and the CHOP/CHAZ autonomous zone was established also in Shama's district. Our socialist office, at the same time of this massive unrest against racism on the streets, proposed a bill to tax Amazon to fund affordable housing with green infrastructure. Shama's office had previously won a historic tax on Amazon back in 2018, but that was reversed after a week with the help of the Democrats in City Council, who gave into big business and used the sunset clause to end it. But using the lessons from that past campaign, while in a vastly different economic situation, the Tax Amazon movement and the Seattle working class won a tax on big business that would pull in $210 to $240 million per year to create tens of thousands of green union jobs by building permanently affordable and eco-sustainable affordable housing. This victory was entirely due to the power of our movement and our threat to take the Amazon tax to the ballot if the City Council failed to act. This offensive win is a historic example of the power of class struggle, and it could have not come at a better time. Cities and states across the country were and still are being pushed by extreme austerity budgets and inflation in response to the pandemic-triggered budget shortfalls as we enter into another deep crisis of capitalism. Other victories in Shama's decade in office have been historic renters' rights protections like a freeze on winter and school-time evictions, the requirement of landlords to comp moving costs for tenants with less than a 3-month notice, and tenants need at least a 180-day notice before a pay increase. Recently in Seattle, they've also ended caste discrimination, which has been a long time practice, specifically with workers like in the tech industry with Indian Americans. So just like another protection against oppression, which is really good. So fighting for and winning these gains for working class people conjured up obviously a lot of retaliation from Seattle's ruling class and liberal establishment, and our office faced a battle at every turn. It's inspiring to talk about and recall these tactics of a working class campaign that not only was fighting to re-elect a representative with a proven track record, but we fought for a movement to maintain its power and fight for more gains like rent control and public investment instead of corporate development. I volunteered for the last weekend before the November 2019 election and was blown away by the organized roles and activities that were taken and planned on a daily basis to maximize our reach with everyone in the city. In the final days of the campaign, it was virtually impossible to walk or drive through the district without seeing a poster or yard sign that read, "Don't let Amazon blow up this election," 2 days left to vote for the Socialist, or "Seattle needs rent control." With 4 days until the election, we set up tables at every major street intersection of Capitol Hill, a key neighborhood in the district with a high concentration of voters living in apartment buildings paying exorbitant amounts for their rent. In the final 3 days, we mobilized hundreds of people across the district, including members of SA and other volunteers, to get out the vote, setting up tables and talking to people, putting up posters and yard signs, and going door knocking from the early hours of the morning until dark. On the day of the election, after a final round of door knocking, we gathered with hundreds of supporters to watch the results come in and celebrate the incredible work of our campaign over the last 6 months. The resounding success of the last few days of this historic campaign was the culmination of months of a massive, sophisticated grassroots organizing effort spearheaded by SA. To win, we knew we had to reach tens of thousands of voters in the district, raise hundreds of thousands of dollars, mobilize hundreds of volunteers, and fight an endless onslaught of attacks from big business and the corporate establishment. So with this political objective in mind, we set up a robust campaign apparatus supported by local branches of SA. A small team of dedicated staff was hired by the campaign to work full-time and was organized into a number of teams to coordinate our efforts, which was the campaign leadership team, the finance team, social media team, and field team. Our campaign leadership was made up of leading members of SA, including Shama Swamp, who maintained a bird's-eye view of all facets of our work. This team had to keep pace with the political terrain, not just in the Seattle district, but across the country and the world, where working-class people are moving into action against the billionaires. Our starting point in developing our political program and campaign strategy was an analysis of the central issues facing working people in Seattle alongside the broader political terrain. And our grassroots campaign, of course, did not take a dime of corporate cash because the interests of big business are fundamentally at odds with the needs of working people. This means that our entire campaign was funded exclusively by ordinary working people and young people to whom Shama Swan is solely accountable. The hostility from big business towards our movement's victories and demands was on full display in this election, with corporations from Amazon and Vulcan and Comcast dumping over $4 million into corporate PACs to elect pro-business candidates across the city. Our opponent in the race, Egan Orion, was one of the biggest recipients of corporate PAC money in Seattle City Council history. However, we broke a more noble record, which was raised $575,000, more than any city council campaign in Seattle's history, with 7,900 donors and a median donation of just $20. After Amazon dropped a $1 million money bomb, the weeks that the ballots dropped, the finance team pushed hard to raise thousands of dollars to show that ordinary people want to fight back against this blatant attempt to buy city council. Campaign staff and SA branch members took note of the widespread anger that exists towards Jeff Bezos and executives at Amazon. Rather than seeing this $1 million as a death wish, we recognized that it was an issue we could boldly campaign on. We used it as a rallying cry to our supporters in the district and beyond, reminding people what it will mean for the future of Seattle and other cities across the country if Amazon was able to successfully buy this election. Altogether, over the course of the campaign, we completed more than 8,000 hours of canvassing, knocked out 225,000 doors, spent 2,778 hours phone banking, and assessed the support level of over 23,000 people in the district. Through our canvassing, we registered 1,019 people to vote and drove voter turnout to an exceptional level for a non-presidential election year. We led outreach in the Vietnamese and East African immigrant communities. With our partners in the Vietnamese Senior Association, we organized a meet and greet with over 60 community members that raised $940. We worked closely with the local leader in the East African community who led the charge of registering and mobilizing hundreds of supporters, and we received endorsements from many other community leaders. We also, very importantly, registered hundreds of students with the campus drive at Seattle University. It was also, this approach of connecting and really organizing with different facets of the Seattle working class and broader cultural community whose needs are historically, not fought for in City Hall, that boosted our openly socialist campaign. Amazon and the other corporate behemoths headquartered in Seattle could pour millions into the election, but it's not strong enough to defeat people power. The subsequent winning of the Amazon tax I discussed earlier, along with a stint of the Black Lives Matter protests being led into City Hall that angered the Seattle establishment, including the police, to pursue one of the most undemocratic recall campaigns of our time. The state Supreme Court, with no hearing on the truth of the charges, ruled in favor of this right-wing recall, resulting in outright lies appearing on the ballot as the last thing anyone saw before voting. The courts inexplicably stalled their judgment for 3 months, allowing the right-wing recall to carry out voter suppression with an unprecedented winter holiday election, which are typically far lower turnout than general elections. The very same court threw out a recall effort against Amazon's mayor of Seattle, Jenny Durkin, less than 6 months before that, after she illegally ordered the tear gassing of peaceful BLM protesters, resulting in over 18,000 complaints. As the severe attacks on abortion rights and the racist justice system also clearly show, the capitalist courts are not on the side of working people and the oppressed. Even though this was a fight to defend our city council seat, our campaign went on the offensive while the recall efforts stalled as much as they could to ensure lower turnout and higher odds for them to win. The recall campaign claimed they were struggling to collect enough signatures, so the Shama Solidarity Campaign responded with going all out on the streets and collecting the signatures ourselves. With the put up or shut up tactic, we collected over 3,000 signatures for the recall to be put on the ballot, with Shama prominently signing the petition herself. We did this to expose the right-wing recall campaign for consciously avoiding putting the question on the November 2nd ballot when turnout would be highest, as other people are also voting for like the mayor and many other city and county positions. This tactic helped show, without a doubt, that the recall was attempting voter suppression and gave further credence to our slogan calling the recall campaign right-wing, despite the objections of many rich liberals in the city. While a section of voters didn't initially realize how the recall had a right-wing nature and was connected to the broader right-wing attacks on the BLM movement, it became clear as we confidently called out our enemies and top funders of the recall, which was 130 plus Trump donors, over 500 Republican donors, and of course Amazon and other corporations who couldn't beat Shama in our election a fair way. This was the most difficult election we faced since Shama came to office in 2013. Seattle had never seen a December election, a timing consciously engineered by the recall to drive down voter turnout among workers, renters, young people, and people of color. A corporate PAC with the Orwellian name A Better Seattle poured hundreds of thousands of dollars into constantly bombarding voters with lies and deceit in TV, web, and mail ads. Meanwhile, the Shama Solidarity Campaign was denied ads by Google, YouTube, and Hulu. Socialists can counter the right by unapologetically fighting against all forms of oppression and connecting this to fighting demands that benefit working people. We need to be willing to expose those corporate and even progressive leaders who offer no solutions for the working class while we organize for clear policies like rent control, increased wages, taxing the rich, and a socialist Green New Deal jobs program. Just a little more on the ground game. Over 1,500 people in District 3 volunteered in some way, many of them filling out pledge cards to discuss the election and turn out the votes of at least 3 friends, family members, or co-workers. In contrast to left electoral campaigns that promised victories based on voting, we told every supporter that we needed them to do more than just vote. And it's this very active, approach that really helps boost grassroots organizing. We asked every supporter we met door knocking and tabling at least 3 times if they would donate to the campaign, stressing the spending of right-wingers and corporate executives. We broke all Seattle records again, receiving over 5,000 donors from within the district. I'm just gonna fast forward because I know we're kind of close to lunch. So all of these organizational achievements were necessary to win, and they all flow from the working class orientation of genuine Marxism. Many activists were also impressed by the discipline of our campaign, which also flows from our revolutionary politics. And this was a campaign of struggle, aiming to turn passive support into an active fight against the large landlords, big developers, and corporate executives who dominate the political establishment. And just a little bit about what we've been up to with Workers Strike Back. Being part of these campaigns for me felt monumental. I've learned so much about grassroots organizing and how it really can never be successful with passive support or lip service for things that working people need. Instead, it's going to take an active, organized fight from the entire working class. So we've had a successful 10-year experience with the fighting socialists in office, but there's still the astronomical need to rebuild the labor movement and to the power it can be to fight the ruling class and win an equitable socialist society. A couple hundred Democratic Socialist candidates have been elected to office in Shama, but it's clear trust cannot be put on the Progressive Caucus, who have backed Biden for his 2nd term and shamefully voted to block the rail strike. Shama is a dual member of Socialist Alternative as well as DSA, and recognizes the shameful cover DSA also provides for the Democratic Party. These weaknesses make the Republican Party seem like a party for the worker and against the status quo, which is of course dangerous and detrimental to causes on the left. Building a strong movement in our workplaces and on the streets has historically been a prerequisite for change on an institutional level. Last year saw hundreds of thousands of workers fighting to unionize their workplaces or going on strikes to win a good contract, whether at Amazon or at Starbucks or at the University of California. We saw the historic victory of Amazon workers at JFK in New York City by the newly formed Amazon Labor Union. And the year before, we saw Striketober, which included historic battles like the John Deere strike and in Seattle, the strike of the Pacific Northwest carpenters, which we were actively supporting and organizing with. So it's been about 3 months since the launch of Workers Strike Back by Shama Sawant, Socialist Alternative, and other partnering organizations, and we have been busy supporting worker struggle across the country. Workers Strike Back is on the ground in Kentucky at the KCBG Amazon Air Hub as they fight for a union, $30 an hour, and 180 hours of PTO. And this is also where 5 workers were fired within a month for organizing. It is critical that we build a network of solidarity across the country to support the workers and stand against the bosses. A union breakthrough there at Amazon's largest air hub would undoubtedly inspire other Amazon facilities across the country, reinvigorating a movement that began last year with a groundbreaking win at JFK and Staten Island through the Amazon Labor Union. This would give a surge of confidence to other workers in the logistics industry and beyond. And we're also, of course, gearing up to support a UPS strike if one is called. We've helped organize a network of undergraduate support for unionized graduate students at Temple University who are fighting for a living wage of their own while up against administrators earning 6-figure salaries. We've picketed alongside American Airlines employees demanding a contract and an end to the regime of corporate greed and disgraceful underpayment. We joined over 200 union journalists in a walkout against retaliatory firings at NBC and stood with nurses calling for safe staffing. We're working alongside rail workers across the country, issuing calls to nationalize rail in the wake of a crushed strike, and now increased attention to devastating derailments from corporate cost-cutting and skipping on safety measures. These initiatives and more show the type of solidarity and action and class struggle that Workers Strike Back hopes to amplify and strengthen to its fullest potential. There's like a couple other national things I could talk about, but I'll just kind of skip through to what we're doing in Massachusetts. So far we've supported a lot of union struggles at Starbucks stores and other coffee shops, primarily in Boston. And we're currently watching for a possible educators strike locally with the EAW. Last night, 97% of EAW members voted no confidence in the school committee, and the city announced they are introducing a third party in their negotiations. And across the country and in Boston today, we're holding rallies to defend the right to strike, as the conservative Supreme Court is hearing a case that would allow companies to sue unions for striking. We are having a meeting and discussion on defending the right to strike tomorrow here in Worcester at 2 p.m. at Elm Park. I encourage everyone here to attend and get involved in the fight for a lifetime of workers' rights. And as always, thanks for having me today. If you like what you heard, check out our table and grab a flyer for tomorrow's event, and open up for any questions.
So wonderful talk. Thank you so much. A couple things. First, it'd be really great if we can amplify your remarks, and if you are okay with providing, your notes, your written transcript, it would be really great for us, I think, to circulate it and just share the power of all the run-up to Workers Strike Back and what you're doing now. Really great. So I want to throw that out there if you're able to share your talk. Okay.
Yeah, I could definitely share with the Green Party. I think we also took a video of the speech too, so we could also circulate.
Oh, good. Okay, great. Thanks. And then also my question, I know in the past, Socialist Alternative has done really great work, and we've collaborated on many campaigns, especially at the local level. And I guess that's my question now. If there are candidates who are running basically on a Workers Strike Back platform, because there's an awful lot of overlap here, I guess that's my question. Have you figured, and I totally respect that you're organizing outside of the electoral realm, and that's kind of Shama's decision, to do that, and that's really important, and it fills a critical void. So this is not to detract from that, but actually to amplify it, and to use the electoral process in key elections to help lift up, the fight that you're fighting and that we're fighting together. So there's my question.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think, like what we explained, Shama's been in office for 10 years, has been able to do amazing work. It really attests to when we do actually have, independent candidates that are fighting for corporations, and there's definitely, that was meant to inspire more people to run. I think for now, Workers Strike Back is very young, and we've been very busy, of course, with all of the workers' developments. But I think we would definitely open the door for candidates to run on an independent slate or on the Green Party slate. We'd definitely be interested in getting to know like the Green Party candidates here in Massachusetts, because I don't know, we don't know like too much about them personally. I know like Socialist Alternative, we endorsed in like the past 2 presidential elections, we endorsed Jill Stein and Howie Hawkins. But yeah, so we definitely would be open to like inspiring new independent campaigns, but there aren't any in the works at the moment. Sorry.
I didn't think you knew that. No.
That's something why I quote this in the third person.
Yeah, I want to thank your organization for being here today. I know you come from Rhode Island and
I've come from Worcester, yeah.
You're local. Because it was really very inspiring. And it's nice to see sort of a new group coming into Massachusetts. And perhaps your experience in Kashama Sawant's experience in Seattle can give us some direction. It has occurred to me frequently that we have a lot of incredibly good, well-organized social movement groups here in Massachusetts, but we are all operating still pretty much in silos. And it seems to me that the movement in general, whether it's across the country or here specifically in Massachusetts, needs to have almost like an ongoing, coordinating, organizing group of progressive groups who clearly, flatly are not going to be taken over by the Democratic Party and do strategy and relationship building within some kind of council. I keep thinking a little bit about what I've read about the CIO back in the 20s and the 30s and how they brought the various craft unions together to create a much stronger force. I think we need some of that, not just here. My great fantasy, which will never happen while I'm still walking this earth, is that there'd be a New England Progressive Council that would really take this region and move it ahead and be an example like Washington and Seattle is for this country. But thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think like that's what like one of the aims of Worker Strike Back is. Like it's definitely like an independent movement in the streets, and that's how it starts. Like that's like it's from the ground up. But I think it would be important to have like a coalition of organizations that will stand firmly on like not letting working class people be bought out by the ideas of like the Democratic Party, of course, like not the Republican Party either. And like also like working together, especially with like labor developments in the state. I think with the educators too, I would love to see you guys out there if they do go on strike or at different rallies. I know I've seen the Green Rainbow Party at the nurses strike last year, so like that's very awesome. And I think that's definitely where we can have similarities. I think we should like work together for bigger things in the state. That'd be awesome.
Any more questions?
I just want to say it's more of a comment or like a friendly reminder that what I've noticed down in South America, like especially in not Peru, Venezuela, is that the candidates that do run and help the people ultimately in the end come from organizations like you. And the party works together, like as a coalition with that. So I just wanted to say, we are always welcoming anyone who wants to run for especially local and state offices, because local is where we have the most power. So if any of your members, or you know of anyone that you align with in your coalition, please let them know that if they do want to run, that we are very, very happy to welcome them. And thank you so much for your presentation.
And just piggybacking on Elizabeth's remarks here, yeah, I wanna add that over the years, we have seen efforts to build coalitions come and go, and what can I say? There's just so many forces that are working against us. It's hard enough to do our own work, let alone build a coalition. It's really hard. So sometimes on the way to getting to a coalition, you know, we collaborate on the ground, and that's a really great place to start. And I just want to add that observing different groups, you know, we all kind of focus on different pieces of the pie. And one thing that the Green Rainbow Party does is learn how to fight inside the electoral process. And that's not like, you know, that alone is not going to get you there, because you really have to be out in the streets. But because we've been so busy trying to fight within that electoral process, and they make you go through so many hoops, as Shama knows, you know, they really try to hold you back. So sometimes we come together with different areas of experience and expertise. And when we start doing that, you know, even just collaborating on specific union drives or specific candidate elections, the key is, you know, when we get together, then we really become an unstoppable force. So thank you so much.
All right, everyone, food's here downstairs. We have an hour to eat. Please, folks who are seeking nominations, please turn in your nomination forms to David Spanagel or Gus Steve. And please, you know, after you're done eating, while you're walking around schmoozing, please take the opportunity to go to our wonderful guests, our table.